I've told this story only once before. Even now, thinking about it makes the back of my neck prickle. The smell of wet earth, the hiss of rain, the color of fire against a night sky. It happened years ago, back when I still thought alone meant safe. I used to backpack solo through the Appalachians. No phone, no people, no noise, just me and the trail. It was freedom, or at least that's what I thought back then. That trip changed everything. It was late autumn, the air already sharp enough to bite. I'd been hiking 2 days through Cherokee National Forest, surrounded by miles of forest so thick it felt untouched. The leaves were gold and rust, the creeks low but singing. I'd made camp near a ridge the night before, slept under a canopy of stars so bright it didn't seem real. The morning was clear, perfect for hiking. I packed up, shouldered my gear, and set out. By mid-afternoon, I noticed the light had changed. The sky was dimmer, not cloudy exactly, just dull, as if the color had been drained out of it. The wind started to whisper through the treetops, soft at first, then rougher. I stopped and looked west. A line of dark clouds was piling up fast, stretching across the horizon like a bruise. I wasn't worried yet. I'd been caught in storms before. Rain never scared me. It was almost part of the adventure. I just adjusted my pace, figuring I'd reach lower ground before it broke. Within an hour, that plan was worthless. The wind picked up hard, slapping my hood against my face. The air turned cold enough that I could see my breath. Then the first raindrop hit, huge, heavy, followed by a dozen more. In minutes, it was a downpour. I tightened the straps on my pack and started searching for shelter. The trail cut through open terrain with no caves, no rock faces, not even a dense thicket to crawl under. The thunder got closer, deep, rolling cracks that echoed through the valley. Then came the flash. Lightning exploded somewhere too close to guess, white light filling my vision. For a second, everything went silent. Then the crash hit, so loud it felt like my chest was collapsing. That's when I saw it. Through the sheets of rain, something square, dark, and impossible. A cabin. It stood maybe 50 yards off the trail, half hidden behind a cluster of poplars. At first, I thought I was seeing things. The lines were too straight, the angles too perfect. But another flash of lightning confirmed it. A building. Out here. I didn't think twice. I left the trail, boots sinking into mud, and half ran toward it. The closer I got, the older it looked. The porch leaned forward, the boards dark with rot. Moss covered the roof. The single window was fogged and grimy. The door wasn't locked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The air hit me like a wall, damp, sour, thick with the smell of old smoke and something metallic underneath. It was dark, except for the faint gray light bleeding through the window. There wasn't much inside. A chair missing a leg, a rickety table, a cot frame with no mattress. Cobwebs hung from the corners like lace. Still, it was dry. I dropped my pack, peeled off my soaked jacket, and sat down on the floor. The sound of rain on the roof was deafening, but it was also soothing. My muscles relaxed for hours. I told myself I'd wait it out. Then I started noticing things. When the lightning flashed again, I saw the wall near the door, lines carved deep in the wood. Scratches. Dozens of them, some shallow, others gouged so deep they cut into the grain. They weren't neat or random. They looked desperate. I stood up and moved closer. My flashlight caught them at an angle, and I could see they weren't old weather marks or animal claws. These were made by hands, uneven, jagged, overlapping. Then I saw the latch on the door. It was a simple metal hook, but on the outside frame was a heavy bracket, the kind used to hold a padlock. There was no latch on the inside, which meant the door could only be locked from the outside. My mouth went dry. I turned to the window. It was intact, no cracks, no breaks, but the corners of the frame glinted silver. I leaned closer. 4 screws, one in each corner, driven in from the outside. I ran my fingers along the inside of the frame and felt the grooves, deep, uneven, like fingernails clawing to get out. That's when I realized what this cabin really was. Someone had been locked in here. For a long time, I just stood there, listening to the storm hammering the roof. I told myself it was ancient, maybe a hunter's outpost long forgotten. Maybe someone had locked it years ago to keep animals out. But those scratches didn't look like they were keeping anything out. They were from the inside. The air felt heavier by the minute. I turned off my flashlight and sat back down, trying to slow my breathing. Then I heard it, a soft scrape against the outer wall. I froze. It came again, slower, longer, right along the left side of the cabin. I held my breath, listening. Then 2 dull thuds on the porch. Not thunder, not branches. Footsteps. I killed the light, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. The wind howled, and in that noise I could hear movement, slow, deliberate, like someone pacing. The floorboards creaked, the latch rattled, and then pressure. Someone was leaning against the door. The wood groaned, the hinges strained. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound itself. Why wasn't whoever it was coming in? The door wasn't locked. Unless they didn't want to come in. Unless they wanted to make sure I didn't leave. That thought hit me like a punch. I started shaking, from cold or fear, I couldn't tell. I needed to get out. I needed to move. I grabbed my pack, shoved my flashlight inside, and reached for the latch. The next sound wasn't thunder. It was glass shattering. Something crashed through the window, small and fast. I didn't even see it land before the world turned orange. Flames burst across the floor like water spilled from a bucket. The heat was instant, choking. Smoke filled the room in seconds. I lunged for the door. It didn't move. I hit it with my shoulder again and again until the hinges snapped and the door blew open into the rain. I fell forward into mud, gasping, blinking through smoke and water. Behind me, the cabin went up like paper. The flames climbed through the roof, devouring everything. For a split second, lightning flashed, and in that light, I saw him, a figure standing at the tree line, watching. I ran. My boots slipped on wet roots, my pack bouncing against my spine. Every breath felt like fire in my lungs. Behind me, the forest glowed orange from the burning cabin. I could hear crackling, collapsing wood. And something else. Footsteps, maybe. I didn't look back. The trees blurred together, the rain coming down so hard it stung my face. My flashlight was gone, my bearings gone. Finally, my legs gave out. I dropped to my knees under 2 fallen trees that had formed a narrow gap. I curled underneath and waited. The rain kept falling, steady, cold, endless. I listened for footsteps, for breathing, for anything.
Nothing. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under. When I woke, the rain had stopped. The forest was drenched, steaming in the weak light. Everything smelled like wet ash. I crawled out under the logs, my body stiff, my arm blistered where the fire had caught me. There was no smoke on the horizon, no sign of fire, just trees. I started walking. I didn't know which direction, just away. Hours passed. The sun climbed and fell behind clouds. My water ran low. Then, through the fog, I saw a line in the dirt, a trail. I followed it. By mid-afternoon, I heard the faint hum of an engine, a Forest Service road. When I stumbled out of the trees, a white pickup was parked on the shoulder. The driver, an older man, looked like he'd seen a ghost when he spotted me. He didn't ask questions. He just opened the door.
They said I had second-degree burns, mild smoke inhalation, and dehydration. I stayed 2 nights. When the police came, I told them everything. They took notes, asked questions. The officer nodded politely but looked skeptical. "You're sure about the location?" he asked. I gave him the coordinates for my GPS. He said they'd send someone. A week later, he called back. "There's nothing there," he said. "No cabin, no fire damage, just forest." I told him that was impossible. I could still smell the smoke in my hair. He paused. He might have found a hunter's blind or something temporary. Maybe lightning struck. Happens more than you think. I hung up without replying. Months later, when my burns healed, I drove back. I don't know what I was hoping for. Closure, maybe? Proof I wasn't losing it? The trailhead looked the same. The air smelled of pine and rain. I hiked the same path, counting my steps, matching landmarks. Every bend felt familiar until I reached the spot where the cabin had been. There was nothing. No clearing, no foundation, not even disturbed soil. It was as if it had never existed. I stood there, turning in circles, trying to match my memory with what I saw. The forest had no gaps, no trace of fire. But when the wind shifted, I caught it again, the faint, acrid smell of burnt wood. After that, I started dreaming about it. In the dreams, I'm always inside the cabin again. The walls breathe with the wind. The door rattles. Sometimes I wake to the sound of rain on the roof, except I live in a second-floor apartment now, and there is no roof that close above me. I tell myself it's just trauma, memory rewiring itself, but sometimes when it rains, I swear I can smell smoke. A year later, curiosity got the better of me. I filed a request with the Forest Service for any record of a structure in that area. A few weeks later, a manila envelope arrived. Inside were 2 photocopied pages. The first was a property survey from 1963. The second was a handwritten ranger's note. Old containment cabin located near Ridge 22C, used for temporary holding until transfer to county. Structure condemned 1974 after incident. Site ordered demolished. I stared at those words until they blurred. Containment cabin. That night, I called the same officer who'd taken my report. He wasn't thrilled to hear from me. When I read the note to him, he went quiet. Finally, he said, "Sir, that site was demolished decades ago. If you saw a cabin there, it wasn't supposed to exist." "Then what did I walk into?" I asked. He didn't answer, just said, "Maybe don't go back there," and hung up. I stopped hiking after that. My wife thinks it's because I grew up, that I outgrew the need to be alone. I let her believe that. But every once in a while, when the air turns heavy before a storm, I'll catch that smell again, smoke and rain, and feel the same chill run through me. Because somewhere out there, in some forgotten corner of the woods, a cabin still stands, maybe rebuilt, maybe waiting, and maybe it's still locked from the outside. I don't tell this story to scare people. I tell it because I need someone else to know it happened. If you're ever out in the backcountry and the storm comes faster than you expect, if you see a shape through the trees, a roof where there shouldn't be one, keep walking. Don't open the door. Don't go inside. And whatever you do, if you hear someone scratching at the walls, don't answer. Because I learned something that night, something I can't forget. Sometimes the place that looks like salvation is the one built to trap you, and sometimes the storm outside isn't the thing you should be running from.